2022, my last year of high school ever. I'm a 15-year-old boy who can't make it through my day-to-day life without punching down 6, 7 cones before the day had even begun. Now, my morning routine would consist of that, scrolling on TikTok and thinking about how terrible the day ahead was going to be. Now, the reason for my negative attitude towards life was because A, I'd just broken up with my girlfriend who I'd been with for 2 years, so that was weighing on my mind, and B, both of my best mates had just moved schools. One had moved to a completely different town. And so I spent every day at school sitting on the same bench, eating beef mince and rice, just fixating on how lonely I was. And instead of facing the problem and doing something to fix it, I would always mask the problem and blame the problem on everyone else. I was in this constant state of like a victim mentality. I would blame it on my ex-girlfriend because, I wasn't with her anymore and, she caused all the arguments. I'd blame it on my mates for, moving away from me. They didn't care about me enough to stay. And it was never my fault. And I just kept masking the problem, using different substances, punching cones, watching corn, all of that sort of thing. And, it wasn't long after my mates moved away and I broke up with my girlfriend that I gained a dependency on, punching down cones. And I started doing it every single day, going to school, coming home early, doing it after the gym at night, any chance I would get. And that just made me feel even worse because now not only did I not have any friends, but I had a dependency on this stuff. But it gets to the end of the year, December. It's my last week of school and I've made a promise to myself that 2023 is going to be different. And so when I leave school, I'm going to use that time to get completely off it and start changing myself as a man. I promised myself and told everyone around me that I was going to change. 2023 was going to be my year. I was going to get bigger in the gym, get more money, just level up in every aspect pretty much. And I'll start off 2023 with a bang. I'm hanging out with people who are much older than me, getting up to mischief with them. I spent the whole 6 weeks of holidays that I had off, partying, doing degenerate stuff with my mates, going out without my parents knowing, all of that sort of thing. And I had in my mind, this is going to be my last school holidays ever, because I knew I was not going back to school. Okay, so I end up wasting that entire 6-week break. The only thing that I can remember, which is a good memory, is going on bike rides every day in the warm sun with my mate, listening to music, completely conscious, conscious state of mind. But it gets time to go back to school. I don't have a job and I don't have anything I'm working towards. My parents make me go back to school. There's no way they're gonna let me stay home. I go to school, and to make a long story short, I chased this kid and I ultimately ended up getting expelled 10 minutes into year 10. I've spoken about that before on my channel, this video here. If you haven't seen that, go watch that. But I'll get expelled. And for the next 2 weeks, what I choose to do is just sit in sorrow, I'm now speaking to my mates again, but I still choose to sit at home, watch corn all day, 3 or 4 times a day, watch movies. The only productive thing I was doing was going to the gym. Now it gets to 2 weeks later and I had planned to stay at my mate's house one night with my best mate. I'm sure a few of you will have heard this story before. We make a series of very poor choices. One thing leads to another. We end up landing ourselves in a 15-month-long court case. My mate's house got searched. My house got searched. I got my clothes taken, my shoes taken, my phone. And to top it all off, by law, I was no longer allowed to speak to either of my mates, which were my only mates, for the next 15 months or for as long as the court case were to go on, which I had no idea at the time, which just put me straight back to square one. And I knew I brought it upon myself. And so what followed in the next 3 months was just constantly feeling sorry for myself, wasting time, just the same stuff every single day. I remember I got so down bad, bro. I was watching corn 3 or 4 times a day, hopping up at like 10 o'clock, and I would connect my phone to the TV that I had in my room and I would watch it on that. I'm like, no word of a lie. And every single time I would do it, my self-respect just went like this. That just made me feel more lonely and it made me want to do it even more, and I just repeated this vicious cycle until it gets to June of 2023, so the same year. I finally take some initiative, take some responsibility, and I get a full-time job working at the same place as both of my brothers as a machinery operator. And it's at this point that I decide, you know what? All these successful people I'm seeing online, they all have something in common. They've had to go through this period of their life where they're alone. They all talk about it, where they can't be friends with the people they want to be friends with because they're not successful enough yet, but they don't want to be friends with the people who want to be friends with them because those people aren't the type of guys that they want to associate with. It's the lonely chapter. So I started to accept it more and more. Now, by this point, I'd started a business with my brother. We'd done a $600 day. We were really excited. You know, we were hyped. That was a lot of money to us at the time. And so we keep working on it. But then we end up, you know, sort of falling off track. He loses focus, I lose focus. And it gets to September of the same year. I start talking to this girl on Snapchat who I knew through a mutual friend from school, right? And I get majorly distracted here. I end up having her over one day, you know, not much happens. We end up having a kiss at the end of the day. But 3 weeks after that, we end up doing the deed together for the very first time. And I didn't know it at the time. This was not the start of a loving relationship. It was the start of a lust-driven relationship. So I keep seeing her more and more. Any free time that I have, I'd have her over, you know. Wednesday was my rest day from the gym. I'd have her over that night. I'd have her over on the weekend and, you know, we'd do stuff together. And I lost focus. And at first, I felt good again. You know, I no longer felt alone. I felt like that void was filled. I was seeing her literally every single week and talking to her every single day. But it gets to around November. And I remember one night, it's a Friday night, I'm writing music, you know, listening to some beats, getting some lyrics down, I'm having a good time. But I'm also having some cans of beverage at that time. And all of a sudden, I get hit like a ton of bricks with this feeling of loneliness. And it's worse than it's ever been before. You know, I would say all of this stuff combined, you know, listening to the emotional beats and, you know, having a few of those beverages, it all just enhanced that feeling. So it was the worst it had ever been. And at the same time, I'm snapping this girl. So she could tell that there was something different with me. You know, she's asking like, are you okay? What's wrong? And I tell her, no, I'm all good. I'm just like a bit tired. I'm writing some music. And this was the first of many times that she had to ask me that because she could tell that there was something up. And in my head, the whole time, I knew what it was. The business that I had started months prior, my pride and joy, my business plan from when I was 14 years old, had begun to fall down because I was focusing on the wrong things. I was focusing on her rather than focusing on, you know, what the true vision was initially. So I just keep pushing this feeling down, saying, you know, that can't possibly be it. You know, give it some time, the relationship will improve, everything will improve. It'll just get so much better. And it gets to December. I have a few weeks off work for the, you know, Christmas holidays, and I start having beverages socially more and more. So, you know, I'm doing it with my brothers, and it's fun at first, you know, hanging out with my brothers, doing it, hanging out with the family. But after it was time to pack up, you know, stop socializing and I'd be by myself, it just once again enhanced that feeling even more. I felt so alone, even though I now had people around me. You know, I had this girl, it was virtually my girlfriend at the time, right? I felt alone. Right, so I just keep ignoring this for months until it gets to February of 2024. I end up just saying to this girl, you know, I don't think it's the right time. I'm focused on the wrong things at the moment. Like I straight up told her that I've sort of been getting distracted with her and that sort of thing. And, you know, she took that to heart. But from this point, because I diminished my confidence so much, diminished my self-respect, it didn't improve very much from here. And I ended up turning to corn again after having not watched it for around 8 months by that point. I started watching it every single day for the next 2-3 weeks. But then in April of 2024, everything changed for me. I locked in, as the young'uns would say. I just had my focus set on the one thing. I started this business at the time. You know, I was really slow at the beginning, but I remember one day, I had the day off work for Anzac Day, and I managed to do $660 in sales. And I remember that number because it was so specific, and I was hyped. And I showed everyone in my family, I showed everyone around me, but this sort of filled that lonely feeling that I had at the time. So I keep working on it, I keep making progress. On the 10th of April, I end up having my court case and I get a resolution, you know, we just get put out on probation. Nothing further from that, I'm allowed to talk to my mates again, but I choose not to. I choose to not really talk to them. It almost seemed like I had outgrown them. I just kept working on this one thing until it gets to May. I put in my 2-week notice, I end up quitting, I end up leaving my job on my birthday, the 14th of June, and I'm just so heavily focused on scaling this business. But I end up doing a really high month. I see, you know, $5,000 on the dashboard and I think, oh, this is good. It means I don't have to work as hard anymore. And slowly but surely, everything started to go down for me. It started to drop off, started to fail. And I fell back into, you know, old habits. I started hopping up a bit later, wasting time. I wasn't getting as much work done. I thought, you know, it's okay. I'm already making progress. Why bother? And this feeling of loneliness came back. But once I started focusing on one thing again, which is what you're seeing right now, YouTube, which I'm blessed enough to say is my full-time job, I started feeling fulfilled. I no longer felt lonely. I no longer was seeing, you know, these things on social media that made me feel more alone. I was no longer looking at TV shows and, oh, you know, I wish I had that relationship. Because the thing that was missing the entire time wasn't girls, it wasn't friends, it wasn't people, it was fulfillment. And it's not necessarily money, you know, money just happened to be the thing that, you know, gave me that good feeling at the time. It was the fulfillment of the work. And as soon as that left my life, that is when I started to feel worse and worse. You just think about this, the times when you've been most happy in your life are when you were a child, you know, you were so full of innocence. What were you doing in those times? For me, I was good at drawing and stuff, and I loved riding scooters, riding motorbikes and riding BMXs. And so that was what got me fired up. Those were the times in my life where I was most happy. And I started drawing when I was probably 6, 7 years old, and I was really quite a good drawer. So I stopped doing that at 12 years old when I got into all this degenerate stuff. And that is when my self-respect, my confidence started to diminish and I started to feel more alone. It didn't matter that there were people around me at those ages. I felt alone because I didn't have something purposeful in my life. What you need to understand, bro, is if you feel empty right now, what's missing is not a person. If you feel some sort of way, there's no way that another person can make you not feel that way. All it's going to do is mask the problem. If you can't feel happy and fulfilled within yourself, then no person is going to be able to make you feel that way. It doesn't matter how many of my videos you watch, any other YouTuber for that matter. You're creating a short-term solution for a long-term problem. As soon as you realize that you actually have a purpose on this earth that is beyond sitting at a desk working a 9 to 5 for your entire life, that is when you will start to feel fulfilled. And I'll just tell you, the best way to find your purpose is by realizing that you were put on this earth to help people. You have stories and knowledge in that head of yours that you need to give to the world. Nobody on the face of this earth 3 years ago would have said, that kid's gonna be something great. You know, I was the broke addict loser who was annoying people in class, throwing things at people, being disrespectful to teachers. No one would have said, oh yeah, he's gonna be a successful YouTuber, he's gonna make it one day. But here I am, telling my stories, and I'm grateful that I went through all of these things. But there's so many people who would have gone through my circumstance, gone through the same things that I did, and then they would just say, oh, you know, it's just how life is. No one wants to hear my stories. I'm just a loser. This is how life goes. You can either accept your circumstance or you can do something to fix it. But the sooner you realize helping people is your true purpose on this earth, the sooner you will find your purpose to fulfill. Sexual pleasures, parties, substances, all of this stuff, it seems so fun in the moment, but it is never going to make you truly happy, and it's never going to help you get anywhere that you actually want to be in your life. And as I said, the times that I've felt most alone are the times that I've deviated away from my purpose. You're not missing people, you're not missing pleasure, you're missing purpose. Stay grinding, G.